Thank you for staying with us on TVC News for more on Decision 2023. And we begin another leg of discussions and analysis at this time now. We have a group of experts around. I begin with Akin Fatoke. Of course, he's a chartered accountant and a public affairs analyst. He's also a communications expert. It's good to see you again, Mr. Fatoke. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Kemi. I just say it's nice to be with you again.
It's good to see you again.
You are delightsome. I just came in and I watched you. It's so very infectious.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, Nigerians.
Good afternoon. It's good to see you again. We also bring in Baba Ahmed. He's a strategist, policy analyst, and the group CEO of Global Investment State Communications. Thank you very much for joining us all the way from Abuja, Baba Yusuf. We will, of course, begin in the studio, but of course we'll be dipping in and out to converse with you as well. Of course, TVC News business editor Tolulokwe Ogunjobi is back with us in the studios. Good to see you, Tolu.
Yeah, well done. A lot of work.
Hectic season, even though this isn't your first election experience, but there indeed was something very unique about this one.
Yes. Right? I must tell you, that eagerness, I saw that. I saw every Nigerian wanting to participate. Everybody was just talking about this election. So it's different from the normal ones we used to have. And it's great to be back after being in Cross River for some 4 or 5 days to cover the elections.
Absolutely. Let's, get right, started talking about, the fallout of the presidential election. Mr. Fatoke, what's your reaction to the emergence of, Bola Tinubu as the winner of the elections?
Oh, sir. As an accountant, we look at things conservatively. Even when things are super duper rich, you take a bit of a cue and begin to ask yourself, are you sure? Have you looked at the scenarios? We decide and say, yes, we have that news that came in. I mean, I just say that before I came into the studios, a couple of calls that came to me from our kith and kin in ExxonMobil were outside the country. Say, yes, we had this. Akin, can you confirm if truly Bola Tinubu, the former audit manager, the former treasurer of Mobil, really has emerged? And I say, yes, he has emerged. We talk about the resilience. We talk about the courage. We talk about the capacity to see beyond and on, and we look at the reality of the economy, which, take it or leave it, has not even been static, has regressed quite a lot. Because if you look at all the indices that you can talk about, is it mystery? Is it unemployment? Couched in security concerns, inflation galloping? Just name them. We are on the downward trend. So for me, as a chartered accountant, I say I am so happy, I'm so glad that Bola Ahmed Tinubu will have the opportunity once again to come and waltz at times within the ExxonMobil world, when on the stock exchange, when on the international rating, we were just below average, and then came with creative ingenuity to funding, to get into our real estate without necessarily borrowing, and to be able to, at the end of the day, get the buy-in of the shareholders. At that time, Mobil now eventually became ExxonMobil, to trust that petrodollars could be made in Nigeria, will not be stolen, will be taken to build some of those infrastructures that we had. And we are not talking about the Mobil house alone. I'm talking about quite a number of first-rate machinery that we had in our factory in Apapa, running into millions and billions, and took us back straight in there without borrowing. The Nigeria of today that I see was the ExxonMobil of that time, and he came in and he did the whiskey. No. So to that extent, my reaction and the reaction from my tribe, when I say my tribe, I'm talking of my ExxonMobil, was that we have seen a man who we never believed, and he knows it. We thought he had taken a great, terrible risk at the time he left that paid employment of which was a whiz kid to go into murky waters of politics. And as at the time he was leaving, ExxonMobil said, we don't think we want to lose you. So you know what we are going to do? We're going to give you 1 year. Go out there. If it didn't work, come back. Your job is waiting for you. That is the kind of man that we now see today, that the likes of us, because we are much younger, quite a number of people who are youth corpers, and they are heading institutions, economic manufacturing in Nigeria today, feel that congratulations. Yes, he has come and is now much more older. I am also much more older. But the vivid vision of creating wealth in a desert, so to speak, and making sure that wealth becomes abundant for the vast majority of people gives us the hope that if you could do what you did then, and I know politically he's done quite a number of things as governor of Lagos State, including human capacity development, succession planning, and all that. We believe that he's also going to waltz and do well. Though the terrain, the political terrain, is a bit much more slippery. But trust, with God, all things are possible.
Okay, let me go over now to Abuja to hear from Baba Ahmed. Of course, Baba Yusuf, I'm sorry, we've heard from Akin Fatuke, who has, of course, set the ball rolling with his assessment of the Tinubu victory. It's time for you now, Baba Yusuf, the strategist and the group CEO of Global Investment Trade Company. What did you make of, the victory and the announcement of the winner, in particular, Bola Tinubu?
Well, for every beginning, there is an end. The process of election started and took the tempo rise to the middle of last year. Now it has reached a crescendo, and the winner has been announced by the electoral umpire, INEC, Jagaban. Ashwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been declared the winner. So in effect, we currently have a president-elect. For me, the takeout, importantly, is to go straight to his acceptance speech. Those are, for me, the critical indicators of potential things to come. And if you allow me, I took notes. If I may quote Ashwaji, he said to Nigerians that he will be our servant and not our leader. And secondly, to the Nigerian youths, he said, and I quote, I hear you loud and clear. Whatever the cause, we will chart the path together. And he also spoke about national healing. Interestingly, also, while we are waiting, I took some numbers. The capital market numbers has propped up in the last 2 days, especially yesterday. The market closed with over 200 billion naira capital gains, which is a positive indicator, and also indicating a market capitalization of almost 267 billion naira in the last 2 months, indicating equity gains with potential growth. So expectations are very high. Of course, on the downside, the president-elect or the new president will go into what I call political, economic, and social, headwinds when we consider the numbers on ground. A total debt package of almost over 40 trillion naira. We have a debt to equity, a GDP to debt ratio of over 23%. The IMF projected a growth of about 3.1%. But the key thing here is by 2014, there's a projection of a contraction to about 2% growth. Now, The NBS also indicated almost, the report last quarter of last year of over, 130 million Nigerians being categorized as multidimensionally poor. The president is emerging at a very critical time in the history of Nigeria, where we are most polarized along ethnic, religious, tribal, and other parochial lines. Indeed, it's a hard task ahead for Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, but indeed, we now look at the relief, is looking at the rear view mirror to look at his antecedents and what he had done in Lagos State, and indeed, even before he became the governor of Lagos State. A lot of people talk about his time as Lagos State governor, forgetting that there was a time also he was at the forefront, along with other key Nigerian notable leaders, in the fight for the restoration of democracy in Nigeria, which is very key. And that is why we are here today. So expectations are high, but there's all on the side of delivery of the good governance and dividends of democracy by the president, and indeed by the governors and the legislature at the federal and state level. But of course, the comforting aspect of it is we expect not just replication, but scaling up of those things that have been delivered for Lagos directly and also indirectly, contributions to the empowerment of people and the growth, evolution of the polity in Nigeria.
Mr. Yusuf, all right, we'll put you on hold now and get some more takes now from the analysts in the studio. Tolulokpe, and like Mr. Yusuf rightly mentioned, the investment market, even the stock market, has already received or gotten some form of reaction to the emergence of Bola Tinubu's as victorious. But what's the impact? We understand that the stock market closed in the green yesterday, and already foreign and domestic investors, we also hear that there's some bit of a response. But how positive would you call this signals?
Well, a good one. Let me start from where Mr. Patton stopped. I also have a little bit of knowledge with the mobile thing, because my mom also worked in mobile for more than 30 years. And I heard a lot about what Asiwaju did when he was the auditor and all of that in mobile. So I've heard all of this, and maybe that's what has also put me on this line of understanding the kind of person that Asiwaju is. Just because he was leading at that election, even before the announcement, was when this reaction popped up at the stock market, and the news was everywhere that the market is. What that means is investors are coming back. They are not sitting on the fence anymore. They are seeing someone that has that market face, someone that would attract the needed investment that they think, someone that is ready to put pen to paper, someone that is ready to work. If you notice, when Asiwaju started his meetings, which was a very different one, his gatherings with business people, he started in Lagos here at the hotels, where he met with the likes of Dangote, the likes of Tony Elumelu, the likes of, just mention them. They all attended that meeting. I was there, and I saw what played out there. And he laid out his strategic framework and what maybe his manifesto and all of that at that time, that this is what I want to do. And clearly in that manifesto, something was spelled out: private sector driven economy. And that is something that will grow any economy. Let's talk about it here. No government has the capacity. You heard the last speaker talking about our debt. So we can't continue to borrow to fund infrastructure, to build, roads, and, to revitalize our economy. So that brings you to the kind of person that Asiwaju is. That speaks to it already when you see that kind of immediate response from the market. Now, after meeting with these business people, they didn't stop there. The Nigerian Economic Summit Group is also a very strategic group that shapes the ideas that comes from the Ministry of Finance, the monetary side, the fiscal side. All of these guys, they also met in a room where he also addressed them and said, this is exactly what I'm going to do to run this economy. One of these is removing subsidy. I know we'll get there. But you see, all of these issues, you will see someone that understands Nigeria. He talked about gas, which we are yet to harness. We have proven and unproven resources. That's talking about gas resource under our ground. And Asiwaju Tinubu tells the business people and the oil and gas professionals that I'm going to give long-term, opportunities to business people to come in. Let's sign deals, build the infrastructure, and you pay over time. And at the end of the day, it becomes ours and we continue to make our money. Not just leaving the gas and we continue to, continue to flare gas. And that's just one of it. So you see, I think he actually saw that there's a defect around the economy and he took hold of all of this. Even the cashless issue and the naira scarcity, which we had close to the elections, it was only Asiwaju Bola Tinubu that came out with printable and notable solutions to government. One of it is to lessen the amount of transactions online. That would attract more people to transfer. When I have to transfer 1,000 naira and I'm paying 1,000 naira and maybe 20 naira on it, it's not attractive for me because I'm not paying one. What if I have just 1,000 naira in my account and I want to buy something? He also talked about the banks further strengthening their digital platforms. You see what's been happening since this cashless thing happens. Many times you want to send money with your phone, you have to keep praying. Is it going to work at this time? Is it going to work? That is what has been happening. For the USSD codes, many of them are not even working again. So we didn't prepare. That's what it means. This is the only presidential candidate at that time, who's now the president-elect, that made it clear that there are ways we can go about this thing. So it clearly shows you that this is a man that is business-like, that is market-driven, like I said earlier. And all of this points to the fact that more work will be done, and more work is expected from Asiwaju Tinubu. As from today, the work has started. The transition team has already been identified by President Buhari. I'm sure he will come up with his, and all of this will continue to go. But the economy remains very important.
But let me take you back to that engagement that Bola Tinubu had with the business, community, key leaders in the business community. If we go back, to that interaction, what was the feedback like when he, gave them what he was offering? What was the feedback from these business leaders like?
Good. I can give an example of the chairman of Transcorp Group, Omai Omajafo, president of Transcorp Group. She was the one that asked the question with regards to gas management, where Asiwaju was able. So they all took it. Mr. Frank Aibu, the chairman of Business Day, was also there. These are the people that asked questions. This is the quality. The CEO of Nestle. These are the quality of people that attended that meeting, and they all asked questions. They took in what Asiwaju presented, and they asked their questions. That we have challenges here, we have challenges here. How do you think you can maneuver? Many of our challenges as an economy that we know comes from the monetary and fiscal side, not sinking policies. We see the CBN come up today with a policy. We see the federal government saying at times, I don't know about this policy. At the end of the day, they want to sink things. So that synergy has not been there. And Asiwaju government, I believe, will make sure all of this works. Because if the fiscal and monetary side don't come together, there's a challenge. So the response, staying with your question, was commendable. They were receptive. They took what he said because they saw that he has the knowledge. Now, hold me. The knowledge of the economy is different from just coming up with just figures. No. Understanding your kind of economy. Going green is something Asiwaju also talked about, saying, are you sure we'll ignore our coal when even abroad they still use coal in some places? Are we as advanced and developed to that point where we can always take whatever comes from the West, hook, line, and sinker, or we just plan strategically and move towards aligning with them? This is thinking ahead, planning ahead already, not waiting until May 29th when it will be officially handed over to. So a lot of work is being done and will be done, according to what I see. And for the private sector guys, I think they're ready to play ball with Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. So far, they know that, of course, the ultimate aim is inclusive growth and development. And
Mr. Fatuke, talking about that controversial Naira redesign policy, and okay, so, against all odds, the elections have come and gone, at least this leg of elections, and we are still, many are still grappling with the challenges of accessing cash. But with this Tinubu presidency now, what are your expectations with this regard, and where do we take this policy, taking this policy to the next level? What's your expectation in this regard?
I will tell you what my expectations are, but Tolu just hit a chord in talking about the mom. I like to say, of blessed memory, she worked with me, and I was not expecting he was going to say that, but he actually said that. Now, I'm going to build up to something there. Cashless economy. Tolu is talking about private sector. He's talking about, there are so many catchwords that went on, from production, consumption, must come before production, and what have you. The critical question is how? And in putting on that how, it could have been any. It could have been any. All of the presidential candidates came with a blueprint that we must move from 0 to at least 1, 2, 3 on the integer. But his points to yet another factor. The mom, when she was alive, worked with some other person. This particular person is a lady, and they all worked together. Virtually from birth, this lady is physically challenged. This lady is still alive. Her name is Toyi. She worked in ExxonMobil for 30 years. And one of the things that Bola Tinubu and the management did was unprecedented. For the very first time, they got her a braille machine. Yes. She was so happy. I want to link it to what kind of man would think to that level and extent, lifted this woman and worked for 30 years. She only needs to hear your voice. She will tell you who you are,
yes. You are.
Whether home and abroad. Right. So in talking about the how, and I know any other person could have done that, but it takes a vivid imagination and vision. Still coming back to what Tolu is saying. I never believe that anybody, whether it's a husband, a wife, community, anyhow, that you can do anything without vision. That vision has to be vivid, has to be written. Bola Tinubu has come with his vision. Others have come with his vision. What I am trying to allude to here is that he was the very first person in recorded governance that started the process of transition monitoring team. Get eggheads together, begin to sound them out. He could sit for hours on end, get the brains, put them out. Other governors over time, since 1999, have taken over, and now the federal government, now this is the pathway that we are going to go. For the Bloomberg that you earlier mentioned, like you say, there's the yo-yo, the initial, hey, wait a minute. Do we have confidence and trust in the capacity of this gentleman to allow the private sector to drive the economy? Yes, Bola Tinubu has become mild and conscious of the fact that there is absolutely no way that the private sector must be the driver. Now, back to the cashless attempt, let me say since December 15. I am not aware whether politics or no politics, that Bola Tinubu came and made the point that he did not believe in cashless. That would have been a shock. Why it's going to be a shock is that in 1988, now I didn't make a mistake about that date. In 1988, Bola Tinubu, as the manager of audits in ExxonMobil, decided single-handedly, and people were just wondering, how on earth will you want to do that? He was now going to go digital. He was going to go technology. That was the days of Wang technology and punch card, IBM, and all that. And he said to ExxonMobil, I need to make sure I computerize. And people thought he was crazy. The first thing he did was to now then decide that he was going to get the eggheads out in private sector to come in. That's how people like us came in. I mean, I remember we had a team, we had a core team within the ExxonMobil, Kunle Ali, Olumide Ajomale, Tunde Dada, Shegun Ojo, myself, Akin Doherty, and then he kept on somewhere. And said, you know what? Mine is to give you the level playing field. Go ahead and computerize this system. Put it on. Make sure that within 6 months, I want to begin to see results. Then we said, Bola Tinubu, we don't know how to swim and you want to throw us inside the river. We are going to meet a lot of resistance. He banged the door. If you like, sink. If you are choking, call on me, and I know how to mark you down. Do you know that gave us the impetus? And we not only did that further on in the life of ExxonMobil, we became the first ISO certified company in the oil and gas. Now, I am building that on to tell you that it is not that kind of man who knew that by sitting down and pressing the button, things, we eventually got into SAP. So Bola Tinubu never said he did not believe in the cashless. Others also say they believe in it, but however, when it comes to how we are going to implement the politics and every other thing went on, he got up like he got up some 35, 40 years ago, and he said, we are not sure this is going to work in the direction that you have put. Can we find a shift and make it much more acceptable? That statement that he made is giving the Bloombergs, is giving the stock exchange. Look, let us now come and take your position. I told you about his creative energy to now decide to fund without necessarily borrowing. Now listen to this. This is very, very important. What was in this guy's mind as at that time? What is the big deal that we cannot get into now? We are going to get into education. Because it was education for him to look at a lady that ordinarily more than 40, 45 years ago would have been sent off, now made her into a competent hand that even when people came from across other countries, they were wondering, who is this person? How can this happen? Somebody went into her cubicle one day as a telephone operator, and you said, so you are the one that have been talking to me? And she turned, and she mentioned the guy's name.
All right.
That is the kind of the creativity that we are looking for. I do not think it's going to be a walk in the park. Don't let us deceive ourselves. I think it's going to be very structured. I think, like he did the other time, and I saw him do as a governor, he's going to assemble. He does not necessarily have to know you. Yes, you could be recommended. But he's going to come in there, and you'll be shocked, Kemi, you'll be shocked that you feel that Bola Tinubu does not know a couple of things. He has a working knowledge of a little bit of here and there that you went in front of him and then you started thinking that you could dazzle him. He has a way to puncture. And just one or two questions become so flat.
Okay, Mr. Fatoke, let me put you on hold now and get some more analysis from Mr. Yusuf. So, there's so many, issues presently before the president, and of course with the incoming president now, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. Of course, top on many Nigerians' mind now would be how he will address the Naira redesign policy. It has been fraught with so many challenges, even though as against the gains now, everyone knows that is the way to go. But, in reality, we've not, had it, this bad. What are your expectations in this regard?
With regards to the cashless policy, you mean?
Yes, please.
Well, to answer that, I think we need to step back a little bit. We are going to have an incoming president. I think the first thing he will do, or he has already done, for us that know Asiwaju, is to have a bird's eye view, which he already does, about the entire governance framework. right? And would have worked out. We heard his blueprint and his, the vision for the economy, for the nation. This particular issue came after the contestants, as the case would have been at that time, including Ashwad, that has now obviously impacted on their strategic vision. In this particular instance, the strategic vision of the president-elect, Ashwad Bola Tinubu. I reckon that there will be a tweak in the overall strategic vision and the strategic blueprint that is in place already with regards to, first of all, dealing with the immediate impact on the polity, on the populace, vis-a-vis how they live and how they put words in his mouth. But I'm very sure we expect very sweeping populist position with regards to that. Because as good as the policy is, as people would have heard me in various fora, I felt it is ill-timed, and I still stand by that. I believe the cashless policy is way to go, but the president-elect, knowing his antecedents and capacity, will deal with this issue, which is actually a micro issue that is becoming a macro issue. But taking it from there, I would like to speak about the overall national outlook moving forward with regards to the vision, keying it to the strategic blueprint. And first of all, the expectation is to deal with the critical issue of security with regards to the blueprint and the emanating issues, as the case is at the moment. And then moving on from there to look at a critical issue of the corporate existence of Nigeria, the capacity and competence of harmonizing Nigeria and addressing the issue of diversity is in the pedigree of the president-elect. And I reckon, as a student of politics in Nigeria, he has been in the forefront of. I will expect president-elect to live up to the expectations and his promise to bring Nigeria together, because one of the things he also talked about in his acceptance speech is the discussion about healing the country. I mentioned in my opening remarks the issues around the polarization of the country. And we expect that Ashwaju will be able to deal with that as one of the critical steps to take, as one of the critical next steps to take, to consolidate on the win and to also enable the delivery of good governance. Because we need peace, we need harmony in the country, we need assurances. I believe the president-elect will be able to do that within the framework of his strategic vision and within his capacity and his antecedents. Addressing that will help enable, achievement or delivery of what I believe is in his strategic vision and objective, which is addressing the recurring issue of our dilapidated and backward framework in Nigeria. We expect a leaner, more efficient and effective governance framework that would push us moving forward as a country, as he had done in Lagos. People argue about the size of Lagos in comparison to being the president of the country. And I say it is not the size of the entity that someone has actually presided over that is critical. It is the performance of the leader within a space is giving us an indication of the capacity when given a bigger space. We have countries around the world that have achieved and have succeeded. They are not as big as Nigeria. Indeed, the complexity of Nigeria is actually interestingly reflected in the microcosm of the size of Lagos. Highly cosmopolitan. There's almost no ethnicity or tribal people that are not in Lagos. The business hub of Nigeria and all that. So we expect that to be reflected at the federal level. Meritocracy is a critical success factor for the incoming dispensation to heal the country and to move us forward. I expect from antecedents, again, from pedigree, and that is why we always present our CVs when we look ahead to be hired. And for those that hire us would like to hear about what we have done. We have seen it done in Lagos, yet again, sounding like a broken record, but indeed it is called the Center of Excellence, why it has become a benchmark for us. We expect that to be reflected. I hear the the other panelists loud and clear about achievement in ExxonMobil. We expect furtherance in terms of actioning it beyond rhetorics and mantra of government removing its hands from business of doing business to the business of enablement. We expect to see that also scaled up, by the president-elect to impact short to long term on the economy of this country. Also moving on from there, one of the expectations is how the youth of this country will, beyond the mantra, be fully included, in the governance in the next dispensation, so that the next crop of leaders that will lead this country will be prepared and will be enabled to achieve that. I will stop at that for now,
right.
But I think this will also deal with the cashless policy on the micro level.
All right, Mr. Yusuf, I will also even like to, use some of the points you have raised now and, use that as a buffer somewhat for, assessments from Tolulope Ogunjobi here and, of course, Mr. Akifatuke. For example, the issue of engaging the youth. Of course, we know about the strides of, many young persons in the economy and all that, MSMEs and all that, but with the Tinubu presidency now, how do you think, this, and he has alluded to that already in his acceptance speech, saying he sees and hears, them all. In that regard of, involving them in an inclusive, agenda for the youth, what's your belief about the Tinubu presidency in this regard?
Well, let me take it from where you stopped. He harped on that yesterday when he was reading his speech, saying that youths have heard you loud and clear. I think he even repeated that line, and talking about value and talent these youths possess and they add to government. I don't think Bola Tinubu will ignore this, because when you look at issues around mortgage and consumer credit that Ashwaju has been talking about, if you notice in most of his campaigns, he keeps talking about cash loans, student loans. That's education. He's trying to let them know that everyone will get educated, and a 4-year course
4 years
will
is
be
4 years.
a 4-year course. You see, we are used to an act in this part of the world. When you want to buy a car, you want to buy a house, you need to start looking for money, you need to pay outrightly. But when you travel abroad, it's not done that way. That's why people get to own things comfortably. They get to own their houses, they get to buy new cars, which we can't buy here. We are all running to even get the Tokumbo cars and all of that. So, and Ashwaju Tinubu now clearly is telling us that I'm bringing in a format that will work, and that's a consumer credit format, a mortgage format, something that you'll be sure that if I'm working and I'm earning so amount, an amount can be deducted monthly to pay for my house. That has happened in so many companies. Just like back to mobile again, there is an estate in Lagos here, owner occupier. All those that own those houses, they bought it and they paid for it over the years. How much were those buildings at that time?
BOT.
How much are
Build,
they?
operate, and transfer.
So you see, this is a man that has been into this one way or the other. When you attach when you look at all his antecedents. So I see all of that working coming up. Then tax reforms for small businesses is something that is also, I see they're also going to look at, because we need to bring some more people into the tax net. Look at what happened in Lagos when Ashwaju Bola Tinubu became governor. Many people refer to this, but it's factual, and we need to talk about it. How many millions of naira was being made in a month in Lagos at that time? Was being generated as IGR. It was less than 1 billion naira. But by the time he was leaving,
about 600 million, and then went to
about
50 billion.
50. So let's even take the figures that comes from maybe the naysayers, between 45 and 50 billion. That is positive.
And part of what happened there was plugging the leaks.
Yeah.
So you can increase, you can
Without,
plug. When you put the two together, it's going to be kind of shared prosperity. And my brother, out there was talking about security. Very, 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 very important. Do not forget that when Bola Tinubu came in as governor in 1999, he came in with the concept of the RRS, Rapid Response which eventually we all know, eventually was not properly down the line. The man with such a vivid imagination, I want to believe that he's not only going to listen, and I have to say this, Bola Tinubu might not be a security expert. He sits with you for 5, 10, 15, 1 hour. I don't know how he does it. By the time you go and come back, he regurgitates what you have told him. Maybe he's done a bit of more research. You will be shocked. In fact, when we now go to do pitches, and ExxonMobil comes in, and he is the head, we are the experts, he has listened to us. When he makes the pitches, we'll just be wondering how on earth could it have happened. And I want to talk about the fact that our expectations should mellow. And it's not about Bola Tinubu, it could have been anybody. Okay? You do not manage. You cannot manage what you cannot measure. When you measure, then you are able to manage. One of the first few expectations that I'm expecting to see is that immediately after the inauguration, we have to do a population census. Who are we? Where do we reside? What is all this that we have been tumbling here and there? Boldly, in the spirit of Bola Tinubu, say, look, I don't know exactly what we are talking about here, but I must know who we are, and whether you now migrate or agglomeration, or whatever it is, we want to know who we are. Secondly, because of the creativity, revenue is a challenge. Revenue and oil prices have been doing a lot of yo-yo. Yeah. When revenue is a challenge, you must now do a bit of a creative, and I go back to education. Bola Tinubu made a point in his speech. Yeah, the days of our students and all that, those are the skeletons. Deep, he goes in there and he says to everybody, like I know he has said to us when we were in ExxonMobil, what is the model that is being employed elsewhere? Why can't we now then do it here? He used the word automation. He used the fact that he is going to make sure that we look at our education sector and make sure that they are able to stand on their feet. Something similar to what late Professor Jele Omotola did in University of Lagos. Eventually, making sure that entrepreneurship and that goes. He's going to be very clear.
So they are workable.
They are not only workable, but I have to also say something. They are workable, but it's not going to be for everybody. You either ship it into it or you ship out. If you ship in and you are able to deliver, you get the prosperity. Yeah. If you are not able to, Bola Tinubu is a firm believer of the fact that if you do not work, you do not eat. I will have compassion with you for a little while. I not always looking at me and is wondering what exactly am I saying. We need to look at the ways that the physical have an appropriate kiss with the fiduciary, and a central bank governor and a minister of finance will not be talking at cross purposes. I don't have a problem if you say like you want to surprise or whatever it is, not under a presidency of Bola Tinubu, because at the end of the day, he knows the buck is going to stop with him. So, expectation, we must do a population census, an attempt to do a population census. We know who we are, we know where we are at. We must look at the security. I just made an allusion to security. When we constructed that mobile house many years ago, many years ago, what was the creative thinking as at the time they were now saying, on top of that, there was a plan that we are going to put a helipad. Helipad, as at that time. These are the kind of people that, they are able to think beyond the box, shift the paradigm. And he's going to do what? He's going to use people. He's going to use people. He's going to use people. He's going to communicate. He must communicate. He knows that what is on his hands now is so very heavy. He also knows politically that unless, he said, I've listened out to you. I've listened out to you. He knows that he has to listen to the youth. There has got to be a lot of forgiveness around, the youths. Bring them in. Let their voices be heard. Say sorry when we need to say sorry if we have gone wrong. Bola Tinubu has said sorry to us a lot. He's up there. He does what he needs to do. I will say, no, you can't go in that direction. I said, but so look, start the law. I am the law here. Yes, you are the law, but you are on your own. So many times he has had to come back to us. And he has said sorry to us. By so doing, do you know what that created in us? Ingenuity. And we flew the kite. I believe he will do that. Many people look at Bola Tinubu and wonder, again, is he going to listen? Is he capable of saying sorry and all that? Is he going to whatever? For instance, I can only tell you what I know. Back in the day, nobody could believe. I mean, Bola Tinubu, she knows what I'm saying. She never even believed she was going to be the wife of a Muslim. But we all were thinking, maybe this is what is going to happen. And we all drew blank. He pointed at the lady, and that's exactly the lady he eventually married, and he has been married to that lady up till now. Finally, I also think Mr. Bola Ahmed Tinubu, irrespective of how he feels, will not run into the kind of problems, I call it problems, that President Buhari did. What is it? Well, I got 5% vote from a particular section. And so why do you? I think that was not brinkmanship. I can tell you for free, back in our day, 7 Yoruba and non-Yoruba, apart from the Igbo tribe, were working with him. He recognized the Igbo person. Not only did he recognize the Igbo person, he made the Igbo person his next in command. We all knew that our salvation was making sure we could go through that Igbo man. Yes, and exactly what he did. And when he was now going to go into politics, in the ExxonMobil, we know it. It doesn't mean that who's your deputy or whatever is now going to, it doesn't happen that way. Right. He made the point that I want this man who has been very, very consistent and very good in terms of competence. It doesn't matter even if I'm Yoruba, and he's plugged in him. That Igbo man is still alive. I believe that he will do the same thing. I believe the restfulness, here in feelings, even in Lagos, between a tribe and another tribe, you'll be shocked and be surprised. Don't forget, when he was campaigning, somewhere in Osun, he got the ASU people and they started talking. So his point, the fact that there won't be strike, well, on the altar of trust, if Bola says he's going to do something for you, he will stop every other thing to make sure he does it. So education, health, security, I'm very, very sure.
And the issue of trust, is critical. I want you to wrap up the point you were making earlier, because, in engaging with the youth, in active engagement with them, active inclusiveness, trust is an issue, at least to birth the economy that we all want.
I think that is very important. They need to really work on that as a team, and I think he has people around him that will definitely bring the youth together to understand where he's actually headed. One thing is sure, there are lots of programs designed and focused on youth engagement, youth empowerment. He met with the tech guys also in Lagos during this time, and I know the promises he made for many of them, making sure that their ecosystem is going to be more conducive. They're going to be able to do their business more better than they used to do. All across the federation, you see governments fixing all of this fiber cables and all of that for internet access, having small offices where people can go work. Not everybody needs to work in an office, and people still make a lot of money. You can be with your system, your workplace, and you keep making. So those are the kind of environments I think will be created, because government cannot employ everybody. It is very clear. Government cannot do that. But when you create an enabling environment, you pull your hands and let the private sector guys take charge. you see a lot of opportunities that happen. Let me give you one very simple example. Look at this Naira crunch thing we've been talking about. I don't want to mention names, but have you seen all of the smaller banks, online banks? Can you see how they are thriving? Many people are ignoring the main banks. They are transferring their cash to those smaller banks, and they can do their transfers and do all of the other. So there is always
an opportunity. You can even access cash.
There is always an opportunity. They won't tell you to bring your old cash that they will help you take to CBN. You see, so every in all of these challenges, there's always an opportunity. And as a government, you need to grab that opportunity and create a leeway for your citizens, for youths who are in that sector. They must benefit. That's the kind of presidency I see Ashwaju running. Let me quickly say something before I let this go. I remembered also with Lagos State government, when he was governor. We need to refer to this thing so that people will know that this is somebody that has a track record. There was issues around ghost workers and all of that those years where people used to talk about, you're not sure of this, because those days used to be on vouchers, they just write vouchers and all of those things. And Ashwaju said, no, things can't continue to work like this. And the Oracle system was created. If you don't have an Oracle number, you're not a staff of state government and you cannot get salary, you cannot be paid. And for you to get an Oracle number, you go through all of the screenings, your certificates, your employment. So you see, this is somebody that has always tried to make things work, and also, with best international, with at par with international standards. Because when you look at that kind of system, that's what works out here. When you enter the system with your name, you should be able to get my data. So where does the ghost worker come from? So revenue issue is important because you also need revenue to boost that small industry for the youths. It's important that we carry the youths along. The percentage of the number of youths that got their PVCs in this election, it's highly commendable. And everybody participated actively. But now, INEC has done their job. They've told us who the president-elect is. I think we should throw all of that behind us now and come together and still make sure Nigeria stands. Whatever people or if they have challenges, the courts are always open, like one of my boss will always say. The courts are open. Oh, sorry, you're a lawyer too. The courts are opened. We don't need to come on the streets to show whatever it is. So a lot will be done with regards to covering that aspect of the youth ecosystem. Most of our youth, again, like I said, they are techie. So they just want that environment that they can do their job. Not all of them are corrupt. That's not true. And we've argued that many times. So everybody, just take advantage of the opportunities ahead. Take advantage of the internet, the positives of it. And I am sure that with the kind of people I see around Bola Tinubu, the quality of youth I see around him, it is sure that the youths are in for a new dawn. And of course, jobs will be created and inclusive growth. I always like to say inclusive growth because there's growth and there's inclusive growth. Inclusive growth is the one that carries those people in that poverty line, that 130 million people that carries them along.
Development, yes.
That is inclusive. But there's a kind of growth that will be restricted to a particular set of people. That's not the kind of growth we want. Not that kind of growth that we get with first subsidy payments, where some set of people are getting so rich every day. But we Nigerians, we continue to pay and subsidize our neighboring countries. We can continue to do that.
All right. And, back to you, Baba Yusuf, talking about creating an avenue for inclusion among critical, stakeholders. We saw the value that the youth brought to this, this stage of the just concluded elections, talking about the presidential and the National Assembly elections. But then there is a concerning trust deficit. And, people are saying it's not just for the president-elect to also, carry people along. There just must be, a part that the people need to play, the youth in this instance need to play now to make or to create the change that we want. What do you have to say about the roles that everybody must indeed play, not just the president-elect, but the youth and every other critical stakeholder to create the change we all want?
The leadership value chain concept. I've said it time and again in forums that I believe that the success of the focal point leader, and in this case, what I refer to focal point leaders, what I refer to focal point leadership is the president, the governor, the Senate president, and their likes are what I call the focal point leaders. Alone, they cannot deliver success. They cannot achieve that which they want to achieve. Indeed, the capacity or the quality of a leader can be inferred from the quality of the team he carries with him. And to that effect, that is a leadership value chain. Now, back to your question. The cohesiveness of a nation or society or an organization starting from the home starts from that leadership value chain. So while we task the incoming president with regards to harmony, with regards to, inclusion and all that, we should understand that that critical success factor is dependent on how down the leadership value chain we all play our roles as parents, as religious leaders, as traditional leaders, as corporate leaders, and on, even within the civil service. So what we are saying is that has to happen for us to even have the unity of purpose for the focal point leader to achieve. Otherwise, the focal point leader will become what I call an entrapped leader, because he alone cannot go and deliver or enable or do that which each and every one of us need to do at this point, at every particular strata of leadership. And to that extent, I call on all of us, while we are doing what we are doing or feeling what we are feeling, that indeed, if we want a country to continue as Nigeria as a project, we must have a Nigeria first before we achieve our either personal or collective objectives. And to that extent, the narrative and the action is, how do we proceed in a way and manner that there's mutual respect and there's regard for each other's feelings and concerns as being addressed, and to also continuously talk to everybody that violence will not give us results. Indeed, they have not given us results before. Indeed, even if there's violence, the solution will always end up at the table. I urge the incoming president to continue as we know him, how he used to do it, to escalate, to upscale that which he has been doing. All of us, well-meaning Nigerians, to follow suit in the way and manner that we still have a nation that we call Nigeria. I love Nigeria, and I appreciate this opportunity.
All right, gentlemen, we've run out of time now on this leg of our discussions, and I just want to say thank you very much to you all for working with us, for staying on with us, especially Mr. Akifatuke. I know we delayed you for a while, but we appreciate your patience and your time with us. Chartered Accountant, Public Affairs Analyst, and Communications Expert Akifatuke, once again, thank you.
Thank you very much. We didn't have time to talk about subsidies.
We didn't, but we'll definitely bring you back.
We need to talk about. Right. Bola Tinubu has to embrace that. He has promised he's going to do it. And then the whole template about Nigeria. This template, can it work? Can it not work? We must be bold to look at it critically.
All right.
And the result.
We will definitely bring you back, for more of that. Baba Yusuf, we say a big thank you to you two for your analysis, strategist, policy analyst, and of course the Group CEO of Global Investment Trade Company, Baba Yusuf. Thank you very much. And of course, Tolu Lokwe Ogunjobi, TVC News Business Editor, for your brilliant submissions. Thank you very much for speaking with us on TVC News.